If I don't get any coffee down my throat in the next 30 seconds, someone's getting drowned in the river. Commander Dale Hutchins, a burly, balding man in his mid-40s, who was the base commander of the Knoll Wests, said in warning to his senior officers, who all sat gathered in the meeting room. Probably you, Ed.
Got your back, Commander, said Carrie Chalmers, his second-in-command.
After everyone saluted, she passed along a pot of the Alliance's finest brew, from which Hutchins gratefully accepted a large pour into his oversized mug. Is there anything like the taste of this beautiful blend of cat piss and rotten bean? Truly the Alliance loves all her children, Hutchins said meditatively.
Don't give the brass too much credit, sir, Chalmers said chidingly. We're the ones who provide the dirty stockings used for filtering.
I definitely suck the dirt of your hose, ma'am, said Ed, with a bit of hope in his voice.
And I'd definitely have you shot in the face if you ever made the attempt, Chalmers replied cheerfully.
Moving on, kids. We've got a busy morning today, Hutchins said. I'm going to need some updates on the new personnel who'll be arriving soon. How's the situation in the East Settlements going?
Oh, you're going to love this one, laughed Chalmers with fake mirth. It looks like we've got some Paldian extremists running wild out there. They're claiming that they're suffering mistreatment from the locals and vow to take the law into their own hands if we refuse them aid.
That has got to be a joke, snorted Thompson in disbelief. Who the hell do those deviants think they are to demand anything from us but the spit in our mouths?
I really wouldn't mind slapping a little humility into them, said Chalmers. One of these days they're going to have to get it through their thick skulls that being from Paldia doesn't mean a damn thing in today's world. They're such entitled little pricks.
Well, the locals will set them straight soon enough, laughed Ed. Nothing for us to deal with. An aide entered the room bearing a sealed letter, which he hurriedly passed to Hutchins before departing. It's funny you should say that, said Hutchins after reading it. It was seen that all 7 would-be vigilantes have recently suffered a simultaneous disconnect.
Huh?
Well, let's just say they were all found nesting southwards of a tree branch.
Laughed Thompson at the news.
Oh, shut up, Thompson, said Chalmers disgustedly.
You already know that Denard's going to take these hangings personally and insist on investigating them when he gets back, which will make more work for me.
I'm just offering a little light-hearted commentary, said Thompson sheepishly. Still, good thing the hero is always willing to go that extra step, right?
Yeah, otherwise you might have to work for a living, said Chalmers with poisonous sweetness.
Hours later.
No, I get it, I do, Hutchins said.
He was describing an amusing argument he'd had earlier in the week with an angry representative from one of the new settlements. You tore a bunch of traumatized war orphans screaming from the arms of their new families, and gave them back to the natives you stole them from to save your lives. But they double-crossed you, and now events have taken a turn towards being scary. That was the gist of it. Was I gisting? Is that even a word? Carrie, is gisting a word?
Gisting is not a word, Commander, replied Lieutenant Chalmers.
Yeah, well, tell that to my son. Puberty hit that punk like a rhino horn. The missus has always complained to me about having to clean his bedsheets. Says his room is starting to smell like old Gruyere.
That's really more than I ever wanted to know about your son, Commander, said Chalmers.
Or maybe fresh Limburger. I don't know. She wants me to talk to him, father to son. Ask him to give it a rest. Take the weekend off or something. I mean, it's not like he's getting paid for it. I'm trying to think of what to say to him. Maybe, son, you don't need to flog it like a dead horse.
That's not how the saying goes, Commander. You don't want to flog a dead horse.
Well, I don't want him flogging himself either. You know, I have a theory that kids who start wanking early become adults with small pricks, said Thompson, who found the conversation interesting and wanted to contribute.
Are you speaking from experience, Thompson? Asked Chalmers, who hated Thompson. Hated him so fucking much. Had hated him for years, and would gladly hate him for eternity if she could but live long enough.
Huh? No, said Thompson defensively.
Explain it. Explain your reasoning right now, Chalmers said.
Her expression was so severe that Thompson began to fear for his safety. Okay, he said, stumbling on his words a bit. It's like weightlifting, yeah? Kids who lift weights too early can hurt their bone structure and stop growing, right? Well, my theory is the same thing, only for wanking. It makes sense, right? A stunned silence awkwardly enveloped the room. Thompson looked around in desperation, but it seemed he had no allies here.
That's the dumbest thing you've ever said, Thompson, erupted Chalmers. I mean it. That theory has leg braces. There is no way in hell you didn't just now make that shit up. Well, no, I meant... You meant what? You just wanted to aerosolize your stupidity? Mission accomplished, friend. But, ma'am, what I meant is... What you just said is not rooted in any kind of actual scientific fact, cut in Chalmers. Penises don't have bones, you idiot. So why would vigorous masturbation stunt their growth? Well, if that's so, then why do we call them boners? Thompson asked with horrifying sincerity. An even more painful silence ensued, which lasted even longer before Chalmers began yelling. That didn't even feel like an actual thought, Thompson, she seethed. It felt like an anti-thought, designed to kill real thoughts before they can be born. A thought-bortion. Do you feel proud of how stupid you are? I feel that you should. It's an achievement. Thompson's eyes turned to the floor in embarrassment. That's what I get for trying, he thought sadly. Now, hold on, Carrie, Hutchins said to her, as he held up a placating hand. Let's just simmer down. Thompson's a good man. Not a smart one, but still a good one. And I know he's not deliberately trying to upset you. He just... Sir, Ed called out urgently, after returning to the room. Sir, Captain Denard has returned, and he wants to speak with you urgently. Did he capture the witches? Did he return with the Count's daughter? Hutchins demanded. He's got one of the witches iced out in a preservation shell, sir, but that's a negative on her apprentice and the girl. Oh, well, I guess Mr. Hero of Humanity will have a perfectly reasonable, non-fucked-up reason for returning to Base 1 for free. Can't wait to hear it. Hutchins groaned as he stood up. I have to make some calls in my office, kids. Meeting dismissed. I'll send for the captain when I've finished. Sir, they all said, as they saluted him. So, what's your point, Captain? Hutchins asked in a bored tone of voice, as he debriefed Denard. In his office, Hutchins sat behind an ornate desk crafted from Palladian oak. It was an old, expensive piece of furniture he'd inherited from his father. Since the fall of Paldea, genuine wooden furnishings from that fallen kingdom had surged tremendously in value. Due to their rarity, they were now considered an extravagance of the wealthy. Hutchins liked having the desk around to show his subordinates the enormous success his family had achieved. Not just anyone sat behind such finery. For Denard, whose family was far older and far wealthier, the gaudy display reeked of desperate ostentatiousness. There's an unregistered sentient weapon running loose in the world, sir, he said. Its threat level is considerable. It's already proven itself to be hostile to our forces. It needs to be neutralized immediately. Didn't you say you were the one to initiate combat, Captain? Hutchins asked him. Yes, sir, but only after it murdered my men. And you're certain they weren't the ones who began hostilities? What are you saying? My people were only there to begin with to locate the Count's daughter after that selfish brat chose to flee with the Malum. Kidnapped, Hutchins cut in sharply. She was kidnapped, Captain Denard. That's the official story and we're sticking to it. After she was kidnapped, Denard corrected himself. I stand by their training, sir. We were in a foreign country. They would have known better than to start ship with some random local. The only thing I can think of to explain his behavior is that he was an Malum trap. If the Malum had a weapon powerful enough to give even you a good fight, then why wouldn't they have deployed it earlier? Hutchins inquired. Does that make any sense to you? I think... Denard hesitated as he spoke. He's not going to believe me. This will just be a waste of time, he thought. Yes, Captain? Hutchins asked impatiently. Ah, to hell with it, Denard decided. Sir, I think that the events of the retrieval operation were orchestrated. Maybe the kidnappers weren't aware of what would occur and were being used as puppets. Again, for what purpose? Denard swallowed. He hated discussing this aspect of himself with others. Sir, I don't really go for all that prophetic stuff. I consider myself a soldier and nothing more, and that's how I've chosen to live my life, but I am the hero. And that's the status that's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way over the years. It wouldn't surprise me if this was part of an ongoing conspiracy to either dispose of me, or maybe look ineffective. Captain, have you been breathing in aluminium fumes or something? You're not being serious, are you? Hutchins chortled. You're putting forth a conspiracy theory? A conspiracy to make you look bad? That's a little egotistical, wouldn't you say? Sir, please, just listen, Denard said urgently. I'm not making this up. That beach slasher in Fellow City, the Iranandos vigilantes, the Malum being radicalized, the mutiny at Noengardia. How the hell do you know about the mutiny at Noengardia?
asked Hutchins in surprise. I was the one who suppressed it, Denard said quietly. And these recent events make it seem as though, whenever the old Alliance factions act out, I'll be the one to silence them. For the first time since Hutchins met him, a hint of a tremor touched Denard's voice. I'm sick of it, Denard continued. It's butchery, it's murder. The people I'm sent against, most of them aren't even warriors, they're scholars, or just angry civilians. But someone out there is using them for... Captain Denard. Jonah, warned Hutchins. Our official state policy is that only criminals engage in the sort of shenanigans you've just described. That means you're accusing your superiors of unlawful behavior. Calm down and think a little before you speak. Sir, every one of those civilian dissidents in Fellow City were high on the same alchemist brew of adrenals and hallucinogens, Denard said heatedly. As were the mutineers at Noel G. Are you really expected to believe that all those people, several nations apart, across the span of 3 years, had all gotten loaded on the same bad batch? Captain, you're overthinking this. What I think, sir, is that whoever's setting these people up isn't bothering to cover their tracks. Why should they? Everybody knows that Paldians and Crothians are all ungrateful subhuman filth, and they all deserve what they got. They're uppity scum who haven't yet learned their new place in the world. Isn't that so? All right, kid, all right, Hutchins said wearily. I tried, I really did. You're a proven asset, Captain, but you just don't seem to get how the game is played. Should I be surprised you side with a bunch of foreigners over your own people? It's such a heroic stance to take. Sir, I choose to believe in the values our alliance claims to represent, replied Denard. And if acting upon those values should negatively affect my career, I'm prepared to accept the consequences. Hutchins laughed contemptuously from behind his desk. By the gods, I liked you better when I didn't know you were an idealist. Hutchins sat silently for a few moments before continuing. Speaking of consequences, Captain Denard, he said, placing a deliberate emphasis on the word. Technically, you returned in failure. The Count's daughter is still missing. You could be court-martialed for that. Got anything to say for yourself? Sir, I can still find the girl, said Denard unapologetically. I decided that the greater priority was returning with the body of Julia Victus and news of the rogue weapon. If necessary, I'd repeat my decision. Yeah, that's what I thought you'd say, dumbass, Hutchins said with a smirk. Well, I guess you've left me no choice. Hutchins rose from his chair, standing with an air of authoritative finality, like a magistrate preparing to sentence the guilty. Guess that's it for me in the military, Denard thought to himself. Whatever. Congratulations on your promotion, Knight Captain Denard, Hutchins said with a smile. What? Asked Denard in confusion. He'd been completely caught off guard. Not much surprised him anymore, but this was one of those rare moments. I don't understand. What's to understand? Asked a suddenly jovial Hutchins. You saved a lot of lives, kid. How can I punish the man who took down a notorious terrorist and fought like hell to avenge the deaths of his men? All that heroism made me look very good in front of the Admiralty. What sort of ungrateful monster would I be if I held a grudge against you? Oh, well, thank you very much, sir, Denard began to say before being interrupted. You're a talented young man, Denard, Hutchins cut in. Perhaps too talented to stay under my command. Luckily, we've found just the posting a true patriot like you deserves. Okay, here it comes, Denard thought dejectedly. We're transferring you up north, son. There's been quite a bit of saber rattling on the border recently. Damn vampires have been acting awful uppity since the return of one of their missing High Council members. Seems the Paldians had him in their care for a while, and they're a little upset about the treatment he received. Commander Hutchins, sir, I work alone, Denard tried to say. Not anymore, you don't, kid, replied Hutchins with a merry little grin. Come on, you're the hero. All caps. A hero of the Alliance. Time to start passing along your knowledge. Time to show everyone else how it's done. When I look at you, I see a natural leader of men. Don't prove me wrong. Hutchins sat back down, kicked back in his chair and said, Politics aside, there's not a lot of action where you're heading, Knight Captain. You'll have a lot of downtime on your hands. Hopefully you'll spend it getting your head straight and deciding which values truly matter to you. And should I have difficulty making a decision, sir? Denard asked, icily. Well then, your new posting may very well be the ignominious end of a once promising career, Hutchins said bluntly. You've got time. Think it over. If you get bored, maybe they'll let you play town constable out there in the boonies. Everyone loves having an amateur sleuth around. Dismissed. Denard turned away, seething with frustration. I knew I should have kept my mouth shut, he thought. Just as he opened the office door, however, he heard Hutchins's voice call out, Where's my salute, Knight Captain?" Before he could stop himself, Denard, normally the picture of calm neutrality, turned and gave his commanding officer the only salute he felt the man deserved. A single-fingered one. Then he angrily stomped away. For his part, Hutchins laughed harder than he had in years. It was a belly-shaking explosion of mirth that lasted so long he'd worried he'd break a rib. When he finally settled down, he wiped his brow and sighed, as he slowly regained his breath. "Good for you, Denard," he said to the empty room. While the kid was normally about as emotionally expressive as a small rock, it seemed he had quite the volatile nature buried beneath that unflappable exterior. As Mama liked to say, still waters run deep, thought the amused Hutchins. Despite the flagrant disrespect he'd been shown, Hutchins decided to let it slide, just this once, for old time's sake. Besides, no one would have believed him if he said what Denard had done. Still chuckling to himself, Hutchins activated the sigils on his transmission mirror and sent out an encoded request for face-to-face communication. A few moments later, he was granted permission to connect. "It's done, Sir May," he said to the human noble projecting from his screen. "The loose end has been trimmed." "Not as thoroughly as I'd like," Sir May told him humorlessly. He was a handsome but stern-looking young man of Far West ancestry. Young though he was, he exuded an aura of such absolute authority that Hutchins, who was a 23 veteran of the service, was always tempted to salute him whenever they made contact. "You're certain a more permanent solution can't be arranged?" Sir May asked pointedly. "An officer of that caliber doesn't deserve to lose his career for the sake of a few dead underlings," replied Hutchins. "Not even a half-breed." "I wasn't talking about ending his career," Sir May said ominously. He must be joking. "Well, if you ever feel like throwing your life away, why not armor up and take a swing at Denard yourself?" Hutchins snorted. "Don't think I couldn't deal with him personally, Commander," May said. "He's nothing compared to me. One day the Alliance will know it." Hutchins couldn't help but smirk at May's confidence. Young nobles were all the same, boasting of the glory they'd easily earn in battle if they didn't have more important things to do with their time. But at least most of those cowards weren't silly enough to claim they could take down a Magna Hasta. "Oh, I'd love to see you try, Sunshine," Hutchins thought uncharitably to himself. Half-breed or not, Denard was the Magna Hasta, the champion of the Alliance, and Hutchins was an Alliance man through and through. Rich kids acting hard because they had family names to hide behind did not impress him. Besides, there were all those prophecies that Denard supposedly played a part in. He might well be the literal champion of humanity. Suddenly, Hutchins realized that while he'd been lost in thought, May had continued to stare at him in silent scrutiny. The smile drained from Hutchins's face when he realized the other man had meant everything he'd just said. "Right, well," Hutchins stammered. "The agreed-upon payment will soon be deposited into your private account," May said. "Thank you. But are you certain this, hunter you're assigning me will make up for losing Denard?" "Stalker, Commander Hutchins. His title is Stalker," corrected May. "Right, Stalker. My question still stands, though. Denard is the Magna Hasta. A lot of people are going to be wondering why I'm sending him away." "That thing's tainted blood makes him unworthy of being the Magna Hasta," stated May without emotion. "He should have been struck down for the audacity of pursuing that title, much less obtaining it. Correct-thinking people of considerable influence are now petitioning the Alliance Senate to have Cross's status invalidated. This grotesque mistake will soon be rectified." "You've got to be kidding me," Hutchins thought. He'd never heard of the title being stripped of someone before. It was supposed to last until death in battle or retirement from service. "The Stalker being assigned to you will prove his superiority. The girl will be retrieved, and all witnesses will be silenced. Grail, the silence in white has never failed us. The future is ours. You will see," May continued. Right," Hutchins said uncomfortably. "Yes, right," May repeated. "A new era has begun, Commander. Forget what came before and embrace the changes to come. Creatures like Jonah Denard will be discarded like rotten fruit. His throat will be slit like that of a swine, but his blood will be carefully collected and poured into a midden bucket, to prevent it from contaminating any precious soil it might have spilled upon. The dirt itself will have more value than his life." Hudgens said nothing. He just sat there, listening, not daring to interrupt. This pleased May. "Stay loyal, Commander Hudgens," he said in dismissal. "Your obedience will guarantee your continued prosperity." "Of course, my lord," Hudgens said quietly. But about Danar's reports of a rogue sentient weapon. If the Malum truly have access to such a tool, unlikely. The bungling fool was making excuses for both his failure and the loss of his men. Godly weapons do not want this tainted world randomly intervening in mortal affairs. That is blasphemy. If a divine weapon were to appear, it would immediately see the value of serving we the faithful. Of course, Hudgens said. "Do you remain faithful, Commander Hudgens?" asked May. "Always and forever, great lord." "Excellent. See that you remain so. Farewell for now." May's image faded from the mirror, leaving Hudgens alone with his thoughts. Hudgens nearly said, "What a crazy son of a bitch," aloud, but his instincts warned him to stay silent. Who knew who was watching? Listening. Waiting for an opportunity to catch him off guard. Loyalty might guarantee his prosperity, but silence would preserve his life. Like he said, old man, it's a new era, he thought to himself. But it might also soon be time to put in my papers. Oh, who was he kidding? If he ever actually retired, Carrie would have had Thompson's life within the hour. She was a smart woman too. She'd know how to make it look like an accident. It sure was rough being the boss.